This is it. Good afternoon, everybody. We're here to try and entertain you a little bit, not with on the piano. We're going to talk a little bit, first of all, about the fact that this is the beginning of the second stage.
Yes, absolutely. Now the level has increased. Where every performer we heard so far today was absolutely fantastic, and so now we get into very kind of detailed ideas and nuances about performances, interpretations. So,
because the announcement last night was fairly low key.
Yes,
there were no suicides, no one leaping from the balcony.
Absolutely,
but it is a sad business and a happy thing for some people.
Absolutely, it's just a fact of life and fact of competitions.
But it's very hard. I mean, to accept this emotionally. I think it's very, it's easy for us to underestimate, and of course, people try to show that they're not upset by. Well, it's not a criticism exactly, but it's a rejection of sorts.
Well, absolutely, and it's the pianist is usually kicking themselves. What could I have done more? Could I spend some more time to practice them, or interpreted this differently, or somehow?
I've only been playing this piece for 20 years.
So it is a sad, but also for our performers that have made it, it's a jubilant moment as well. So
I suppose you also were surprised by certain exclusions and certain people who came through to the second stage, and that always happens in competitions too.
Absolutely, looking at the list is trying to rationalize the thoughts of the jurors. Because we sat on almost all of the performers, and so it's trying to rationalize what is the jury thinking, what is the jury looking for.
There's a very important point which I have been thinking about, is how we feel as listeners at the time we're listening to the music. We always put the responsibility onto the performer.
Yes.
I mean, if I've had an argument with my wife, or the cat has done something in the bedroom, I'm not going to be in a very good mood listening to this. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I can test that with the presidential election on Tuesday that happened. That's on the mind. Me as an American, reading about it, thinking about it a lot, and so it was kind of nice to put my phone down and turn off the news and just go to the concert hall and listen. As I'm kind of thinking,
because Rubinstein said that he always played for the ladies in the audience because the men were thinking about golf or their dinner, which they probably hadn't had.
Well, I wasn't thinking about golf or dinner. I very much enjoyed listening to performances and trying to think about what the artist is trying to say.
See, the interesting thing about the second stage is the inclusion of Paderewski's piano music.
Absolutely. Finally, we get to hear this great artist. Most people realize Paderewski as a great pianist, a diplomat, and all the history. But he's also a terrific composer.
Yes.
A lot of the compositions have...
And chamber music, too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of character and a lot of... we could kind of learn more about Paderewski's personality by sitting here and listening to his
music. Because you were saying to me earlier that the minuet was very highly respected historically by pianists.
Absolutely. Almost all great pianists, they played and revered the minuet, the famous Paderewski minuet. It's me coming from the United States. Paderewski music isn't as popular. He's renowned for Chopin editions and as a pianist and recordings.
But I mean, it mustn't be popular anywhere because there is no complete edition any longer of the recorded edition. I mean, there's recorded complete editions of just about everything today.
Yes. You can find numerous versions online, but for me, when I was working on Paderewski music, the struggle was finding an authoritative edition where I could reference what I had that I pulled off the internet versus to something that has that's been analyzed and edited by an authoritative editor. So that was kind of the struggle that I had, and it's kind of interesting if any of these pianists had that same kind of struggle.
Because in this competition, the concerto has never been played in the final. It's not as though somebody hasn't prepared it. It's just that the people who prepared it never got to the final. That's the thing. Don't you find that it's such a wonderful lyrical concerto? I love it.
Yeah, no, it's a charming, beautiful piece. Much like these little small character pieces that we hear throughout the competition. Yeah,
it's rather patriotic. The last movement is a Krakowiak, I think, if I remember the rhythm.
I believe so. I can't quite exact. But the interesting question is, if Paderewski was competing in this competition, would he play his own concerto for the final stage? That's I don't know if he would.
He'd have the hair to win. So.
Absolutely. So.
It's the slow movement of the concerto I'm very fond of. But as a matter of fact, the chairman of the jury, Piotr Polechny, made a wonderful recording of this with Maxim Yuk.
Yeah, I believe he played. Yeah, he played it.
And he plays Paderewski extremely well.
Yes, so just with that Polish background, he had a lot of exposure.
And also there were serious pieces. I mean, you say, some of them were small, but he wrote a sonata also.
Yeah, no, he has a vast collection of music. He had a very long life as a pianist and composer.
See, what's interesting too is that these participants would have to have learned. I mean, they wouldn't be familiar with this because it's not in the repertoire.
Absolutely, like we were talking about earlier, that I think for many of these pianists, their first exposure to Paderewski music was probably in preparation for this competition. As is with probably many competitions.
You don't even hear his work as encores either. That's the odd thing.
I'm going to change that. Hopefully, the Caprice Waltz that we heard today.
Isn't that a great piece?
Fantastic encore piece, and it's always leaves the crowd very jubilant and in high spirits. So,
yes, exactly.
So hopefully, I can change that.
Yes, because there are a number of pieces that were played by earlier pianists in the 30s and even the 40s that we never hear today. Encores that left the audience feeling uplifted.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's a very funny story actually about Rudolf Serkin, who in his first recital gave an encore, and the encore were the Goldberg variations. And all the audience had left the hall.
I can't imagine. Yeah, today couldn't pull that off.
Well, we're going to listen to some of today's, aren't we? A couple of excerpts. You were very impressed with the Waldstein, Yedam Kim.
Absolutely. I don't know how this came across to the viewers recording, but for us, listening to pianists back to back throughout, for the last 3 days, 8 hours of music every day, you really become sensitive to the sound of the pianist, the unique sound of. And for me, Yedam Kim was one of the most impressive sounds, especially when it came to Beethoven.
Well, she played the Polonaise Fantasy and Ravel's La Valse so impressively. So.
Absolutely, it's like there's a uniqueness to her sound and her touch that is for me is just right for Beethoven. In the future, no matter what happens in this competition, I want to see her interpreting works.
You think
of
there's
Beethoven.
a sound for Beethoven?
Absolutely. There's a sound along with interpretation, artistic elements that come with this. What we've been talking about all week, this academic idea. And for me, when she played the Beethoven, it was just right. It had all the correct characteristics. On top of it, had that unique, warm, rich sound that kind of a lot of pianists kind of struggle to achieve. Right. So, like I said, no matter what happens in the competition, I hope to see Yedam Kim performing, Beethoven and interpreting Beethoven works for the rest of her career.
Well, let's listen to a bit. Yedam Kim's playing the opening of the Waldstein Sonata. Now, Yedam Kim also played a piece of Paderewski, the Krakowian, which was a great dance piece.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we've got a clip of that too. So perhaps we could listen to a little bit of the Krakowian. Okay. Well, since we're talking about Paderewski so much, I'd like to play another clip. There's another piece that is very often played here in the competition, is the Nocturne.
Yes.
And the Nocturne, I mean, don't mind me admitting this, has a highly emotional effect on me. Unfortunately, the viewers won't see this. But
absolutely, it's one of the most charming Paderewski
it's
pieces.
Wonderful.
And I wish it was more popular, performed more often. And I think this is the first time I've heard it live in a concert. The recording.
It's one of those pieces, that Truffaut might have put in a film in the 70s, and you're going through the French countryside in an open Alfa Romeo, and this is on the radio. And
absolutely, and especially with today's festivities being, the 11th of November, Polish
it's
national holiday.
National holiday today.
Listening to this music, it's just so perfect and right with the atmosphere that's going on outside on the street.
Yes, you can't hear it, of course. They can't hear it, but there's all sorts of singing and flag waving and
large crowds out on the street and parades. So
vintage cars, the whole deal, the full Monty. Yes, that's right.
Absolutely.
Right, shall we listen to Rina Sudo, who's a wonderful Japanese pianist, playing part of the Nocturne. Yes, we were saying while she was playing how Paderewski would probably have composed film music today.
Yes, absolutely.
That's not a criticism. I mean, this music would have accompanied some wonderful... I didn't mention the girl in the Alfa Romeo, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such charming music and full of just this tremendous Polish spirit.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think it would have,
But there's a lot of Polish music that's not performed, particularly huge piano concertos of the late 19th century, that is full of this, quite strident patriotism. It's fantastic, and it's a universal feeling, as we've seen in the United States recently. It's not just Poland and Polish patriotism.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a feeling many have.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially after the war, there was this kind of movement to write music that was cheerful and uplifting, and also nationalistic and patriotic, and kind of that's what we get here.
You wanted to say something about Steinway pianos to finish today.
Yeah. So Han Chen, also a tremendous performance by him. He played to finish out. First of all, he played the Scriabin Sonata No. 5.
He's from Taiwan.
Yes, from Taiwan. It's the Scriabin Sonata, a beautiful piece. It's Scriabin's first work that's in one movement, and then the rest of his sonatas follow that same structure. But I was most impressed by the Liszt piano sonata. We heard the Liszt performed before. I thought this rendition, this recording, or this performance was fantastic for me, and it was the first time I realized, when the pianists were selecting pianos, I went and looked at the sheet, and most of the pianos selected were the Steinways, and I assumed that the selection Steinways, because pianists are most comfortable with Steinway, they're most popular piano. They know what to expect from a Steinway. You see them in almost every concert halls. Pianists are just used to that balance, there's going to be no surprises when you work on a Steinway. Now, after his performance of the list, I realized the reason why is because there's just so many options that you can get out of the Steinway. So much color that you can get the warm sound that you hear in the Fagioli and still get the high balance that you hear in the Yamaha. So it's just such a versatile piano, and that really came out. And it's important to note, though, that the Steinway that the pianists are playing here is a German Steinway produced in
I
Hamburg.
didn't know that there were.
It's a vastly different instrument in character and color than the American produced Steinway. It's a much warmer sound. So for viewers at home, if you want to differentiate between an American Steinway and a German Steinway, you look at the armrest, the profile of the piano. If the profile is rounded on the arm, then it's a Hamburg Steinway. If it's a blocked armrest, then it's a American.
When you
Steinway.
say the armrest,
the arm on the side of the keyboard.
Yes.
The profile. So
okay.
If the profile is rounded, it's German Steinway. If it's blocked, it's
That's
American
very
Steinway.
interesting to know.
Little piano trivia.
Okay, great.
So I think we're going to take a listen to a little bit of.
It's the fugue, isn't it?
I'm not exactly sure what we select. I believe so.
Yes, that is very interesting. Yes, very, very interesting to listen to, as you were saying about the higher range. And
yeah, absolutely. You get that brightness, you get that ringing that the more the Yamaha and the Kawai kind of have, but you still get that richness and warmth that you hear in the Fagioli.
I suddenly remembered something when I went to the Beethoven house in Bonn. It was one of his pianos, and I looked at the keyboard, and in fact, he had worn the ivory through to the wood. Oh wow! And you could see in the central part of the piano piece. So I often wonder how Beethoven would actually have sounded to us if he had worn the ivory through to the wood. Have you ever seen that?
No, I've seen some keys kind of worn down, but I've never seen it all the way down to the wood. I've seen the hammers worn down to the wood. I've never seen.
Okay, well, we'll meet again tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and I hope you'll be able to join us. Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.